And we are back here at the Democratic National Convention here in Chicago, Illinois. Kimberly S. Johnson is my guest from the Wall Street Journal. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, a lot of energy in the room.
Absolutely.
A lot of increased energy in the room.
Correct.
A month ago, we probably would not have been feeling this.
Probably not.
What does this signal to you?
I think that there's just it seems that there's a renewed optimism among the Democrats that we have been chronicling in the Wall Street Journal, and obviously all media outlets are picking up on this. It's been really early. It's only been 4 weeks or so. Kamala Harris is introducing herself to the nation, to people who don't know much about her. And so I think we're all really anxious to see how she handles this moment tonight. And, you know, there's so much energy, so much excitement. I was at the DNC in 2008 when we nominated Obama. I was out there on the floor talking to people. So it's a similar energy, and people who were there in 08, they've told me they have a similar sort of optimism, but it's different. It's a bit more of a mature optimism.
Yes.
Because they've already put a black man in the White House.
Right.
And so now, can we put a woman of Indian and Jamaican heritage, an American, in the White House?
Have we learned anything? What have we learned from having gone through the Obama experience, all the enthusiasm, to what could very well be the next historic step?
I think what people have told me that, yes, they're excited, and it's a cautious optimism, because many people told me who are either raising funds or more grassroots people that are the head of the Democratic Party in their state, that the work is not over. There is still a great deal of work for a lot of these Democrats to do in the next 70 or so days. And we are seeing, we are reporting that the Republicans are trying to find the right line of attack on Harris and Walz. And we know, and people are saying that they know that these things are going to happen. And so I am interested to see what kind of work is done on the ground. What is the ground operation like? We see her raising money. That's not necessarily a problem, but how are those resources being deployed, and are they going into the right areas and into the right communities?
Talking about this line of attack and the othering of her, the xenophobia that they are championing. Talk about that, and who is that playing to, and do you see it as being successful?
I think that in areas where there is not a lot of diversity, I think that it is different. I think one of the things that we've talked about and we've explored is it's the otherism in a different way that we saw it with Obama, because Obama was white and an other. She is not white and she is Jamaican and Indian, and that is, for many people, that is not a familiar combination of biracialness, so to speak, in America. I'm from New York City. I'm from Queens, one of the most diverse areas in the nation. So everyone I was around was mixed was other. And to me, I find this to be a very interesting social experiment about how people react to someone like her.
Is it resonating? We know within the MAGA base, we understand that that's who he's really playing to, which is interesting, because I see former President Trump now as still running a primary campaign in a general election. In the primaries, you're supposed to tack to your base. You're supposed to solidify your base. In the general election, you're supposed to expand the conversation. I have yet to hear or see that expansion of the conversation. In fact, with the nomination now of Vice President Harris, I see him doubling down.
And he has said that he was willing to double down on the personal assaults. I was at NABJ here in Chicago a few weeks ago in the 6th row when he questioned whether or not she was black. And it's this, I don't know what to do sort of situation. I mean, there are things that fairly we could ask Vice President Harris. We could ask her more details on the economy. How exactly do you deal with price gouging? There are actually serious policy and business and economic details that we should be questioning both candidates about.
Absolutely right, because for the price gouging, we know former President Nixon tried that in 1972. It didn't work. It didn't work then. It's going to be a real challenge now. It sounds very easy. It's a very simplistic. I won't even call it an analysis. But again, there are details that have to be fleshed out because again, seen this movie once, it didn't end well then. It probably won't end now. But staying on the economic conversation, the Obamas, they spoke about the economics of the community. They spoke about the wealth gap. Your thoughts there?
I thought that was such an interesting line. I think it was one of the best lines of the entire week so far. I will give Ms. Harris, Vice President Harris, her due. When she said that we don't have the luxury or the luxury of sort of failing forward, no one to pick us up, the affirmative action of generational wealth. That was by far one of the most powerful lines that many people had ever heard. Number one, it takes a controversial topic, affirmative action, and turns it on its head. Because when we think about affirmative action, and I can say this here, that we think about, giving black and brown and other people, non-white people and women,
the
others, right, a leg up in society. And for her to talk about Trump inheriting millions from his father in New York, and using that as his cushion, as his safety net, his family generational wealth as the social safety net, and that is why he's able to continue to have money, that signifies something, I think, for a lot of people who may not understand what black and brown Americans are talking about when we talk about generational wealth and the wealth gap, where we don't necessarily, many of us don't have land to pass down because it was taken away from us. Tulsa Race Massacre, right?
Correct.
We don't, some people do have houses that they're able to pass down. Are we able to keep up our houses? You know, we've had urban renewal in so many states in so many places. So when she says that generational wealth by its very nature is a form of affirmative action, I think that is a very, very powerful statement. And the people I spoke to the day after said that that was a powerful statement because it showed that she gets it. So the people I spoke to were people of color, and they said, that makes the argument for us, because it's not as if we want a handout of what the opponents of affirmative action says. They're saying that we want an opportunity. We don't want institutions and systems to deny us of the opportunity to have those things. So I think it's sort of like taking something back and owning it. And so taking that term affirmative action back and owning that and explaining what that means, because it can mean something else in another context, and throwing that back at Trump. I think that's really interesting, and I'm excited to see where those lines go and how those conversations go with other people going forward.
A couple of things, if I may, still. One is on the Donald Trump issue and the wealth. Not only was he given wealth from his father, when he squandered that wealth, he was able to go back to his father and get additional millions. So that I think is a very important point. Another point is, in talking about generational wealth, it's and you touched on this, but I want to really be clear to people. It's the ability of the transference of that wealth from generation to generation, so that the subsequent generation does not have to start the whole process all over again and build upon it, because now we're talking about the accumulation of assets. So when you talk about land, when we talk about homes, owning homes, we're talking about assets, and that's how you build wealth.
Correct.
Anything?
I agree with you. And the wealth gap remains, and Pew Research Center said there still is this gnawing wealth gap between Black Americans and white Americans and Latino Americans and white Americans. And I think some of the things we saw Harris start to do on the trail when Biden was the candidate was to talk to black men about entrepreneurship and business formation. And so I think all of those things sort of build on each other, and they're all part of the same topic. And I think what we're seeing is a different way of Black leaders, the Obamas, Vice President Harris, speak about that in the Black community.
Kimberly S. Johnson from the Wall Street Journal, thank you so much for your time. Greatly, greatly appreciate that analysis and your contribution to Politics in Color.
Thank you.
Folks, we are here live at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, Illinois. There's a whole lot more in store here for you on Politics in Color. Stay tuned.